Well, good morning. We'll try to get right side up here. That makes everything work better. Hope you guys are staying warm. It's been a cold week. Going to be almost 60 degrees by Tuesday, and then 12 by Friday night, and lots of crazy in between this week. So buckle up and pay attention, because this could be a wild one. It's wintertime, and that's what it is. So we are trudging along through Genesis on our journey of faith with who will become Abraham. We've been Abram for a while now, and today we're going to go through some of the most complicated names in the Old Testament. Not really, but still, there's a lot of them here. And so I've been studying this throughout this week and reading on this. And so I want to go back and review just a little bit where we were last week. And so we can kind of tie these things together. So last week on Abram, this would make a great Netflix series, wouldn't it? There's a lot of drama here. There's a lot of things going on. So maybe somebody will do that sometime, but if they just do it right. So last week we explored the separation of Lot and Abram. And so we saw where their flocks became too enlarged, and they had too much, and so they had to go their separate ways. And so Abram, being as gracious as he is, gave Lot the option to choose. Lot, being as greedy as he was not gracious back toward Abram and returned that favor to him, took the best grazing land that he could possibly find, and it was down through the valley toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and paid no attention to all of the things that he was going to be exposing his family to and the risk that lied with that. What we find today in Genesis 14 is a realization of the risk. Now, a lot of us are very familiar with what eventually happens in Sodom and Gomorrah, what eventually happens with Lot's family. We'll get to that. But sometimes this one's kind of glossed over a little bit, or we skip over this, that this was an incredibly risky adventure, and this was something that put his family in great danger. And literally they were carried away from their home and taken to a foreign land. And so we see how this all unfolds. And so as we begin looking at this, we're going to look at Genesis 14. And I'm not going to read word for word, because this does get a little bogged down with the names and all the locations, and they name it 3 or 4 different times for verification. But we're just going to kind of bear into this. So that's where we're at. We're starting with Genesis chapter 14. We're looking at verses 1 through 4. But this is basically what is happening. There are 4 Mesopotamian kings, and so they're from outside of the valley of Sodom and Gomorrah, and so and they're led by one particular king referred to as Chedorlaomer. Okay, and Chedorlaomer kind of forms a coalition with these other kings, and he begins to go into the valley of the Jordan River and into the Sodom and Gomorrah valley, the valley of Sodom, and he raids all of these cities. And as he's doing this, he kind of sets it up so that it's really extortion. That's what's taking place here. Is he basically comes in and says, look, you're going to give me whatever I want. In exchange in you giving me everything that I want, I'll protect you from anybody else coming in and doing this to you. It's kind of like, I'm not sure if that really sounds good or not, but that's what that's what was happening. And so he was coming into this area, and he was taking what he wanted, and in exchange for protection from another person, another raider coming in from another location, then they had to go through Chedorlaomer to be able to get that done. And so this is what's taking place. This is what's happening as they do this situation. And like I said, this is called extortion, and it's illegal in our world, but in this world it was very common. And so what happened is the people of the Jordan Valley lived this way, and they put up with this for about 12 years. Now, what we don't know, we're not able to completely piece together the amount of time between Abram and Lot's separation and where we are right now. Okay, we don't have a real good thumb for that. We don't have a real good guide for exactly how many years it was. But we do know that this extortion by King Chedorlaomer took place for about 12 years. And finally, the kings of the Sodom Valley and the Jordan Valley finally had enough of it. And they said, okay, we're done here. We're gonna form a coalition, and we're going to try to combat this situation. And so they form a coalition. And so as we move on down to verse 5, we see in the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings allied with him went out and went on a raid. Okay? And so they do all of this. And so after that, in verse 8, the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, and they all form together and say, this is where we're going to stop. And so they lined up for battle. They lined up for battle in the valley of Sodom in this area, and it did not go well for them. Okay? If you read in the scripture, you see that it was 4 kings, the kings that were led and allied with Chedorlaomer, and then the 5 kings that were allied with the king of Sodom, and they all come together, and it just goes bad for the valley of Sodom. As a matter of fact, it looks like they just all ran away. One of the things that it does mention is in this area at this time were these asphalt or these tar pits. And this should have been like we know our territory, you guys are coming in, we're going to bait you in, we're going to use this as a defense. Instead, they fell into their own tar pits. And so it was just like this, we're out of here, we don't even know what's going on, we're completely clueless. And they ran into some of them escaped into the mountains, and so all of this takes place. And so it's just a routing by King Chedorlaomer. And so they carry away all of these people, okay? They come in, they take all of these goods, they take all of these things, and they carry all of it away. And with that, and this is where the scripture shows us that this becomes an effect to Abram. Starting in verse 11, chapter 14, verse 11, it says, "The 4 kings seized all of the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food. And then they went away, and they also carried off Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions, since he was living in Sodom." Now, we see that, and we know this from later on, but we see that, Lot really didn't stay with the Bedouin roaming nomadic lifestyle. He kind of settled into the city life, and so that's where he was at, and so he was there when the raiders came, and so they carry him off and everything that he has. And so here's the thing. We have a lot of detail here. And like I said, I didn't read it because me trying to pronounce all these words and you trying to read them together doesn't really help us a whole lot. And so this is the reason why we have so much detail. The area conquered by Chedorlaomer, it is very closely, when you look at all of the places that he raided, you go through each one of those cities, and we can pick it all apart. And if you want to do that in your small group, that'd be great. But if you get a map and then take this scripture and find all of those locations on the map, this is what you find. This is how it all pieces together. Chedorlaomer raided all of the land that was given to Abram by God. Okay? So this is where he's raiding at. All of this land, because this is what God told Abram. Look to the north, look to the south, look to the east, look to the west. This is all your land. And so Chedorlaomer comes in, and he raids this whole area. He takes all of this, and he carries it back off into Mesopotamia. And so this is Abram's land. This is what God had given to him. And so this is his land. And so word comes to Abram from the valley and from the battlefield. And so in this place, Abram's kind of living a hands-off approach. We really don't see any connection. We don't really see any encounter between he and the kings of Mesopotamia, the Chedorlaomer group. Abram's kind of just living up in the mountains, doing his thing, and he's fine. And so we don't see anything. But now it has affected his family. Okay? Even though Lot was greedy, even though Lot made the decision that he made, even though he did all the things that he did, he goes off, and so now Abram is affected. And so this is where we pick it up in verse 13, Genesis 14:13. "A man who escaped came and reported this to Abram the Hebrew." Now, where was Abram? He was living near the great trees of Mamre the Amorite, a brother of Eshcol and Aner, all of whom were allied with Abram. So Abram has this group of people that he's around, and he's here, and he's in a pretty safe place. And so what we find happening here is that this whole battle fell apart, and we see how inept and ineffective the armies of the valley were. And so the whole thing comes unraveled. And so this soldier has escaped. He's come to tell Abram about what has happened to Lot. Now, this is what's interesting. First, let's look at what happens, and then let's think about what he could have done, okay? Because Genesis 14:14 tells us what his reaction was, and it's pretty quick. When Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men born in his household and went in pursuit as far as Dan. Now, think about this for just a moment. Think about Lot's behavior. Think about the choice that he made. Think about the decision that he made for his family. And think about the risk that Abram has here. Let's kind of let that sink in for just a moment. Think about all of the risk. Abram is safe. Nobody's raided anything he has. All of his things are safe. And you think about the behavior of his nephew. He's exhibited greed. He's been reckless. He's put his family at risk. He's gone into places that were sinning greatly against God and did it intentionally. And now Abram receives word that he's been carried off into exile, that he's been taken as a prisoner of King Chedorlaomer. Now, first let's look at Abram's life here just a little bit. One of the phrases here in verse 14 says, the 318 trained men born in his household. And if you take that as it reads, you would think that Abram's been there long enough that all of these people are people that have been born into his household through natural birth. That's not what this is referring to. What this is referring to is that these are men who have come with their families and said, we are going to be part of your household. We are pledging ourselves to your home. We want to be a part of your household. And see, this is the thing that sometimes we get this a little confused, and I don't want this to go into some other discussion, but Abram was not about going around and enslaving people, okay? There were people who were servants of Abram, but they were there because they wanted to be there. They wanted the protection of his home. They wanted the protection of being a part of who Abram was. So these 318 trained men are people who have come into his household because they wanted to be. They wanted to be there. They made the decision to be there. And so before the days of strong national governments, people sought safety in numbers. And so these people came to Abram and said, we like the way you run things. We see who you are, and we see the man of integrity. We see the man of character. We see the kind of person that you are, and we want to be with you. Says something, doesn't it? We want to be with you. We want to ally with you. We want to be a part of what you are a part of. And so they made the decision to live under the protection of Abram. And they were not bound to Abram by slavery, but they participated. Actually, this was kind of a business arrangement. And so provision and protection, and it was in exchange for loyalty. And they were loyal to Abram. And here's the thing. This is why this distinction is very important. Abram attracted a large number of loyal followers, not just because he was a wealthy, influential man. His household grew in numbers because people saw how his community enjoyed provision and protection and how he behaved as a person. They came asking to be a part of his household. And so when we see that and we understand that, people who are enslaved are not eager to risk their lives. People who are under the dominion of someone or under a dictatorship. I remember in the very first, in the Desert Storm in 1990, when we went. You remember the stories of the Iraqi army. When we rolled in, they were basically, hey, glad you're here. We're done. We have no desire to fight for this guy. We have no desire to fight you because we do not believe in what we're being led by. We're being forced to be here, and we don't really want to be here. Well, here's the thing. Abram is calling on these men to go with him, put their life at risk and put their life in danger for his nephew, who's pretty much a scoundrel himself, and they're willing to go. They're willing to go. We don't see any of this, hey, we didn't sign up for this. It is what they signed up for. And so it's very interesting to see that they're willing to do this, that they're willing to go. And so again, you can take this in your small group time if you're doing that, or in your personal study time, and look at a map that shows Abram's men and where they went. They marched over 100 miles to the Phoenician city of Laish. This was, if you find it now, it's probably called Dan. And so this was a city that was guarding a major trading route running between Damascus and Tyre. and it was therefore a really important commercial center. And so here's the thing about Chedorlaomer's army. When they got to this location, when they got there, they probably thought, mission accomplished. Ain't nobody coming out here. We're so far away from the kings of Sodom and from those people, and they didn't even know what hit them anyway, and so they went all running scared. So we're in good shape. So there's no reason to be afraid of anybody coming our way. And so they would have camped out in that location with no alert status. Okay, it's kind of like Pearl Harbor. Most of those guys that were on those ships, there was no alert status for them. They had no idea. They had no idea there was even a possibility of what was about to happen. And so King Chedorlaomer's army is here, and they're all there. And so they had humiliated their opposition in Canaan. So they never expected a nighttime raid. This is such brilliant military strategy. Let's look at that. Look at this passage, because you can just go through this so fast you don't even see. In Genesis chapter 14 and verse 15. Look at this. During the night, Abram divided his men to attack them. Now, the Bible is not a history book, okay? And so sometimes you have to stand there and spend some time. And so what's taking place here is, instead of Abram's little group of 318 men coming in one front and being able for them to be surprised and go, okay, well, we are having an attack from here, Abram divided them and probably attacked them from all sides. And so if you're encamped and clueless, and all of a sudden you've got raiders coming at you from all directions, you are confused, it's night, you're just waking up, you have no idea what's taking place, you don't know how many, they're coming from everywhere, and all of a sudden fear takes over, and God's leading him, right? He routed them. He routed them, put them into fear, and took off and pursued them all the way north of Damascus. It's an amazing victory. For a man with such a small group of men, it's an amazing victory. And so we see what happens here is, when Abram returned to his homeland, this is what we want to look at here, is he gets all of this, and he recovered all the goods, brought back his relative Lot and his possessions together with the women and the other people. So Abram comes back to the valley of Sodom. He comes back home, and he has everything with him. Everything they carried off, it's all back. Now what we want to do is look at how he's received. If we find it in chapter 14, verse 17, and this is what we see happen. After Abram returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Shavah, which is the king's valley. And then we see something here, and this is, if you want to have a good side study this week in your small group, here's a good place to play. Okay, verse 18. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brings out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. And praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand. And then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. If you want to chase that down, you can chase that down in Hebrews 5 and 7, and also in Psalm 110, and you can spend some time there. We just don't have time this morning to really tear into this. But this is what, instead of there being this big victory dance, instead of there being this victory celebration, go look at how smart Abram is, look at how military prowess he has, look how incredible he is. Instead, it's like, God did this for you. We're going to give praise and glory to God. And Abram was like, amen. Exactly. This was not me. God did this. God gave me the opportunity. God gave me the skill. God gave me the place, the time. All of those things was from the Lord above. Then we see a different reaction from the king of Sodom. Now look at this in verse 21. The king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people, but keep the goods for yourself. You're like, well, wait a minute, excuse me? You're the one that got routed by King Chedorlaomer. So, we see where we're going here, but let's look at it just in the reality of it. What right did he have to tell Abram that he could keep the stuff? It was Abram's stuff. Abram went and got the stuff. Okay? He got the stuff. This guy lost the stuff. You lost the stuff to King Chedorlaomer, and you had no way of getting it, and I went and got it, so look, it's mine, right? And so that's really where we are. But instead, Sodom's like, hey, just keep the stuff and just give me the people. And Abram could have said, no, we're keeping it all. We're just going to keep it all. But look what he says. Look what he does. Abram said to the king of Sodom, with raised hand I have sworn an oath to the Lord God Most High, Creator of heaven and earth, that I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or the strap of a sandal, so that you will never be able to say, I made Abram rich. I will accept nothing but what my men have eaten and the share that belongs to the men who went with me. Let them have their share. So when we study Abram's actions and his return, when we see his return back from this successful raid, we learn a whole lot about what he has learned. And now what we see is how his actions reveal his true character. Because this could have been an opportunity for him to really excel in his wealth. There's no telling what he had with him. There's really no telling what he had brought back with him. And so he had the opportunity to keep all of this, but instead he said, no, I'm not keeping any of it. I'm not keeping any of it. This is what we discover from Abram's actions. And this is where we take this 4,000-year-old text and we can apply it to our own lives. Okay? This is how we see Abram react. This is we see his actions, and this is how we respond, and this is how we apply this to our lives today. The first thing that we discover from his actions is very genuine unselfishness. Think about this for just a moment. I've never met a truly great person who was selfish. Never met a truly great person who was selfish. Unselfish people habitually hold everything and everyone loosely. Unselfish people. You see, selfish people hold their possessions tightly. Okay? And so I get it. I grew up with great-grandparents who had lived through the Depression. And I remember this, being like a 12-year-old kid, I mowed my great-grandmother's yard, and she gave me some money. It wasn't a whole lot, but she gave me some money. And I remember her giving me, I think it was a $10 bill, and I put it in my pocket. And I walked around, and her brother was there, my uncle Preach. They called him Preach, Uncle Thurman. He was a World War II veteran. And I remember him looking up at me. He said, "Did Granny pay you for mowing the yard?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Did the eagle scream when she let go of it?" And I said, "Not too loud." And I remember growing up in those around folks because they grew up with so little that what little they had they held on to. And sometimes tough times can make us that way. But folks, all that we have, it comes from Him. And so we should learn to not hold so tightly. We should learn not to hold so tightly. Unselfish people habitually hold everything and everyone loosely. They don't squeeze the life out of their possessions or relationships by holding them so tight, because that's what's called obsessive intensity. Instead, unselfish people cultivate a generosity of heart, a genuine desire to share, and they develop an ability to discern what is needed and then give whatever it is that they can. And that was Abram, you see. He could have very easily said, no. I mean, come on. I mean, Lot had his opportunity, And so I've got these men, and they've given their lives to me, and they've come into my home, and I'm the one who provides them protection. I'm not going to risk all that. I mean, I don't want to risk all that I have to go out and try to rescue this kid that just kind of went off the rails. The second thing that we see that is that we learn from Abram is self-sacrifice. Great people possess a willingness to sacrifice their own wants and needs and comfort for the sake of others. Great individuals overlook differences and don't allow personal prejudices or judgments to keep them from seeking the highest good for others. Abram could have done all of this. You see, when you encounter a truly great person, he or she will sacrifice for you, regardless of your differences, even personal failings. The third thing that we see with Abram is an absence of greed. We see a genuine absence of greed. Some of Abram's greatest wealth came to him in an act of disobedience. And I think he learned a lot from that. I think he learned that God could bless him in the midst of disobedience. If God was going to bless me in the midst of disobedience, far be it from me to try to gain it on my own, that God's going to take care of me regardless. And so in great people, we see this absence of greed. We don't find a motivation in personal gain. That's why we see him when the king of Sodom says, look, I want my people back, but you can have all the stuff. Abram said, no, I don't want the stuff. I don't want this stuff. I don't want anybody being able to say that you made me rich. And so you can have the stuff. People who have an absence of greed, they don't ask, how much will I be paid? They don't ask, what are the benefits to me? Great people don't have narcissistic tendencies. We really see that in our society today. There's so much narcissistic tendency in our society now that it almost boggles my mind. Great people seek ways to benefit others without it happening, without them being highlighted. That's what you see in great people. That's what you see in Abram. Great people see money as a means to a greater end. They see it as a tool for accomplishing greater good for everyone. You see, all that we have, all that we're given, all that we hold on to, none of that is ours. We're just holding it for now. You're just holding it for now. One day you won't be here. Somebody else will be holding it. It doesn't matter what it is. Land, cars, property, houses. It ain't yours. You're just holding it right now. God will take it out of your hands and He'll place it in someone else's. It's His. It's His. The older you get, the more you realize that. Because the more you see it happen. The more you see it happen. You're just the one holding it right now. And so use it in a way that is beneficial to Him. And the fourth thing, and I think this is so powerful, that we see that Abram displays, is gentleness. Gentleness. What a quality. What an amazing quality that we see in Abram, is that Abram is gentle. And the way that we describe this is that there's a restraint of power. That's how someone behaves as gentle, is that they have the ability, or they have power, but yet they restrain the use of it. Instead, they control themselves instead of attempting to gain control of others. You see that? You see how that works? You see, Abram could have rescued Lot and said, okay, this is how this is going to work, big guy. I've risked everything in my house for you. And so this is the way you're going to behave. You're going to move out of Sodom. You're going to move back up here close to me. And I'm going to tell you where you're going to go and who you're going to hang out with and how you're going to... Have you heard that speech before? We like to do that with our kids. Gentleness, a restraint of power. Great people often hold positions of authority and wield significant influence, but they keep a tight rein on their potential to harm other people. Great people don't play king of the mountain. It's nature. Okay? That's a natural instinct. If you don't believe it, build a hill, take some dirt, push it up in a pile, and put calves in there and watch them. They'll play king of the hill. It's just they don't have to teach them. I don't have to go out there and say, okay, calf, you come here, calf, you come here. I'm going to teach you how to push each other off this hill. They'll just do it. You just watch them. Goat, sheep, any animal. You just put them on a hilltop, and one will try to push the other off. It's just nature. It's a sinful nature. It's who we are. I think it's a symbol of a fallen world. It's just the world that we live in. And so to go against that grain requires something else inside of us. Gentle people, good leaders, great people, they don't pull rank and expect others to fall in line. Well, that's hard. It's hard. Instead, I always said that this was mom and dad's parenting with me. Sometimes we just give them enough rope to hang themselves, and then we're there to pick up the pieces when the mistake is made. If you don't allow people to make mistakes, if you always try to, and in parenting, that's one of the hardest things there is to do, because we want to set up guardrails. We want to keep them from getting hurt, okay? I'm sitting in my chair yesterday, and my granddaughter likes to hang out in laundry baskets. I don't know where my daughter got this idea, but apparently it's a thing now. And so they create this little deal, and so all these little blankets and all of her little toys and a pillow and all these things, and we set her inside the laundry basket, but now she's getting bigger, and so she likes to lean over, okay? And so it gets a little tippy, okay? So what does Papa do? Well, Cowpaw's going to go, well, I'm going to prevent you from getting hurt. And so I line all of the floor around the laundry basket with pillows. Why? Because I'm afraid she's going to tip over, and when she does, she's going to hit her head on the laminate floor, and we just can't allow that to happen, right? We can't allow that to happen. We've got to protect her from getting hurt, right? Grandma wasn't so helpful, okay? I left the room and was gone for a little while, and the next thing I know, I hear that thud. She hit the floor, and I come running, and I'm like, what happened to my pillows? You leaned the wrong way. Yeah. I had the pillows over here. You went over there. See, that's our tendency. Our tendency is to build walls and to build protection around our children and around our grandchildren so that they can never get hurt. But the truth is, sometimes a little bump on the head teaches them to go, I probably shouldn't put myself into that dangerous situation. And that's how we learn. That's how we learn. And the sign of a great leader is one who will say, I know I can stop you from doing this, but in this instance, I'm going to let you so you'll learn. When we give others freedom to make mistakes, and then we turn those situations into teachable moments. My former co-teacher, Robert Parrish, that was one of his favorite things to say. What have we learned today? What have we learned today? When he would look at something and something is going on, I'll never will forget. I was sitting in a classroom. This was several years ago. I was sitting in there, and it was prom day. It was senior skip day, and so there was nobody there, just a handful of kids. And I was sitting in the classroom, and Mr. Schaum wasn't even there. His substitute was Crystal Grigsby, and so me and Crystal were literally just sitting there talking, and all of a sudden I hear boom, an explosion, and I'm like, oh gosh. And so I took off, and I'm running as hard as I can out the back door, and I run around to the ag shop, and there's a barrel of waste oil on fire. And the lid of the waste oil is laying over here on the ground, and there's a kid standing there with a MIG welder in his hand, and his eyes are this big around. I said, did you try to weld on the oil barrel? Yeah. I said, it didn't go too well, did it? And he said, no, bad idea. And so we threw the top back down and put the fire out. And sometimes you do things, and it's like, I don't know why, I think he was trying to weld his initials on the side of the barrel, and all of a sudden the barrel blew. And it's like, look, sometimes you got to make mistakes to realize you can get blown up. You can get blown up. Though he was incredibly rich and impressively powerful, and was even called by God, my friend, as we see in Isaiah 41, Abram never became overly impressed with himself. He acknowledged his own failings, and he helped others overcome theirs. You know, we don't even know. One thing that we're not even shown in this chapter was Lot's reaction. It doesn't appear to be too incredible. You know, you would think when you get packed off by a raiding king into a foreign land and your uncle comes and bails you out and rescues you in a Navy SEAL nighttime operation, that you'd be like, thanks, Unc, right? We don't even see a thank you in this. We really don't. And so we don't even know well, we know that he went right back. He goes right back to Sodom. But Abram acknowledged his own failings, helped others overcome theirs, and he dealt, get this, listen, he dealt righteously with unrighteous people. You see that? He dealt righteously with unrighteous people. Perhaps all those magnificent character qualities explain why true greatness is so rare. So what about you? How has God dealt with your life? You see, this is a lesson for us to teach us that life is a journey. It's a journey of faith, and throughout that, there are tests, and how we respond are those teachable moments in our lives, and how we respond to those is God's effort to try to grow us more in His likeness. So when we study this, when we apply this, we ask ourselves, well, what have we learned? What have we learned today? What possibly might we need to change going forward? That's your question. Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much. We thank you that you can take an event that happened 4,000 years ago in the land of raiding kings and things that are so foreign to what we reveal today, but then we can look into the character of your chosen man, and we see a heart that should mirror our own. And so, Father, as we review that, as we review Abram's character traits, we compare those to our own. We compare those to our own life lessons and ask ourselves, how do we fare up? Father, the great thing that we have and the great opportunity that we have is we can have a true relationship with you, our Father. Through accepting your Son, Christ, and His death on the cross for our sins, Father, the mistakes that we make today, those sins, those mistakes, that's been paid for. And so, Father, we can lay that aside and we can come, Father, to you in a real relationship. And then, Father, at that point, we can put our trust and our faith in you and allow you to lead us. Father, I don't know where anyone is. I don't know where this falls on anyone's life today, but you know all of our lives. You know all of our hearts. And so, Father, as we respond, as we reflect on this lesson up on these words today, Father, we pray that you'll guide us and we pray that you'll lead us. Help us to respond and reflect in the way you would call us. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.